Disappearing children. By The city of Ravenswood was a quaint and peaceful place, nestled between thick forests and rolling hills. Its narrow cobblestone streets and charming old houses painted a picture of serenity and safety. Families thrived in this close-knit community, where everyone knew each other and children played freely in the streets, their laughter echoing through the alleys. But that sense of security shattered abruptly one autumn evening when little Emily Hart vanished without a trace. Emily had been playing in the park, just a block away from her home. Her mother, Jessica, had kept an eye on her from a nearby bench, chatting with other parents. The park was bustling with activity, filled with children chasing each other, swings creaking, and the occasional bark of a playful dog. But in the blink of an eye, Emily was gone. The search was frantic and immediate, involving neighbors, friends, and eventually the police. Despite their best efforts, no trace of Emily was found, except for one thing: a small, worn-out teddy bear lying in the middle of the park. The teddy bear was peculiar. Its once bright fur had faded to a dull brown, and one of its button eyes was missing. Jessica didn't recognize it as one of Emily's toys, and no other parents claimed it either. It was as if the bear had appeared out of nowhere. The police took it as evidence, though they had little hope it would lead to any answers. Days turned into weeks, and Emily's disappearance remained a dark cloud over Ravenswood. Parents became more cautious, children stayed indoors, and the once lively park turned eerily quiet. But just as the community began to adapt to their new reality, another child went missing. This time it was 6-year-old Tommy Benson. He had been playing in his backyard, his mother watching him through the kitchen window as she prepared dinner. In a matter of minutes he was gone. The only clue left behind was another old toy, this time a wooden soldier with chipped paint and a missing arm, standing upright in the middle of the yard. Panic spread like wildfire. The local police were baffled and overwhelmed. Ravenswood had always been a safe place, with no history of such crimes. The disappearances defied logic, and the mysterious toys left behind only deepened the sense of dread. Parents began forming patrols, taking turns watching over their children, but it did little to ease their fears. The third child to disappear was 8-year-old Lisa Miller. She had been walking home from school with her older brother, who only let go of her hand for a moment to tie his shoe. When he looked up, she was gone. The only thing left behind was a small, raggedy doll with a cracked porcelain face and torn dress, lying in the middle of the sidewalk. The pattern was undeniable. Each child vanished in the blink of an eye, and each time, an old toy appeared at the scene. The media descended on Ravenswood, turning the once quiet town into a frenzy of reporters and news vans. Theories and rumors swirled, but no one had any concrete answers. Some whispered about a sinister kidnapper with a twisted calling card, while others spoke of supernatural forces at play. Amidst the chaos, Detective Samuel Grayson took charge of the investigation. A seasoned officer with a reputation for solving the toughest cases, Grayson was determined to unravel the mystery plaguing Ravenswood. He pored over the details of each disappearance, scrutinizing every piece of evidence, but the old toys offered no clues. They were relics of a bygone era, with no fingerprints or markings that could point to a suspect. Grayson's investigation led him to delve into the history of Ravenswood. He discovered that the town had its share of dark secrets. There were old stories of children disappearing under mysterious circumstances in the early 1900s, though those cases had long been forgotten. The toys found at the current crime scenes bore a striking resemblance to those from that era, further deepening the enigma. As Grayson continued to dig deeper, he uncovered an old legend about a toymaker named Heinrich Adler, who had lived on the outskirts of Ravenswood over a century ago. Adler was known for his exquisite craftsmanship, creating toys that were said to be almost magical. But as the legend went, Adler's own child had disappeared under mysterious circumstances, driving him to madness and despair. Some believed that Adler had cursed his toys to seek out other children, driven by his grief and rage. Grayson was skeptical of such folklore, yet he couldn't ignore the eerie parallels. Determined to leave no stone unturned, he began searching for any surviving records or remnants of Adler's life and work. The answers, he felt, lay buried in the past, waiting to be uncovered. Detective Samuel Grayson's investigation into the history of Heinrich Adler took him to the Ravenswood Historical Society. The old brick building, nestled between the library and a quaint cafe, housed records and artifacts dating back to the town's founding. The curator, an elderly woman named Margaret, greeted Grayson with a mix of curiosity and concern. Margaret led Grayson to the archives in the basement, where dusty shelves were filled with old newspapers, journals, and photographs. She pulled out a box labeled Adler, Heinrich, and placed it on a wooden table. Inside, Grayson found yellowed documents, faded photographs, and a few of Adler's toys, now brittle with age. As Grayson sifted through the materials, a clearer picture of Heinrich Adler emerged. Born in Germany, Adler had emigrated to Ravenswood in the late 1800s, bringing his skills as a toymaker. His toys were beloved by the children of Ravenswood, known for their intricate designs and lifelike qualities. However, after the disappearance of his son, Johann, Adler's life took a tragic turn. Despair consumed him, and he withdrew from the community, his once thriving toy shop falling into disrepair. Among the documents, Grayson found a journal written by Adler. The entries grew increasingly erratic and dark following Johann's disappearance. Adler wrote of hearing his son's laughter in the dead of night and seeing his ghostly figure out of the corner of his eye. His grief and guilt were palpable, and he began to believe that his toys were cursed, imbued with a life of their own. One entry stood out to Grayson. Dated a year after Johann's disappearance, Adler wrote about a ritual he had discovered in an ancient tome, one that could supposedly bind a soul to an object. Adler described performing the ritual in a desperate attempt to bring his son back, using Johann's favorite toy, a teddy bear. The same bear, Grayson realized with a shiver, that had been found at the site of Emily Hart's disappearance. Grayson closed the journal, his mind racing. Could there be any truth to Adler's claims? The logical part of him resisted the notion of cursed toys and restless spirits, yet the pattern of the disappearances was undeniable. He decided to visit Adler's old workshop, now a dilapidated building on the outskirts of town, hoping to find more clues. The workshop was covered in ivy, its windows boarded up and the door hanging on rusty hinges. Grayson forced his way inside, the air thick with dust and the scent of decay. Shelves lined the walls, filled with broken toys and tools, remnants of Adler's once vibrant craft. In the corner, an old workbench stood cluttered with sketches and unfinished projects. Grayson carefully examined the room, his flashlight casting long shadows. He found more journals, each detailing Adler's increasing obsession with the occult and his belief that his toys were vessels for lost souls. The drawings on the workbench were disturbing, showing children merging with their toys, eyes vacant and soulless. As Grayson continued his search, he discovered a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside, he found a small box containing a bundle of letters addressed to Adler from a man named Franz Müller, a fellow toymaker and occultist. Müller wrote about his own experiments with binding souls to objects and offered guidance to Adler. The letters revealed a twisted camaraderie, two men driven by grief and obsession. Grayson took the letters and journals back to his office, his mind heavy with the weight of his findings. He needed to understand the connection between Adler's ritual and the current disappearances. He reached out to a professor of occult studies at a nearby university, hoping for insight into the ritual described by Adler. The professor, Dr. Evelyn Harper, was intrigued by Grayson's findings. She explained that soul-binding rituals were rare and dangerous, often resulting in unintended consequences. If Adler had succeeded in binding his son's soul to the teddy bear, it was possible that the other toys now carried fragments of Johann's restless spirit, drawn to other children out of a longing for companionship or revenge. Dr. Harper's words chilled Grayson. He realized that to stop the disappearances, he needed to break the connection between the toys and the missing children. But how? The answers, he suspected, lay in the final pages of Adler's journal, which spoke of a way to reverse the ritual, a process fraught with peril and requiring the cooperation of those bound to the toys. As Grayson prepared to delve deeper into Adler's dark legacy, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The city of Ravenswood was on edge, each day bringing the threat of another disappearance. Grayson vowed to uncover the truth and save the children, even if it meant confronting the shadows of the past. Detective Grayson's investigation was now a race against time. The old journal entries and letters from Muller provided a potential solution, but the process to reverse the ritual seemed perilous. He pored over the final entries in Adler's journal, trying to piece together the steps required to break the curse. According to Adler, the ritual involved a series of incantations, symbols, and the presence of the bound toys, but the specifics were vague and fragmented. Grayson knew he needed help. He reached out to Dr. Evelyn Harper again, sharing his findings and seeking her expertise. Dr. Harper agreed to assist, recognizing the urgency of the situation. Together, they began to decipher the cryptic instructions in Adler's journal, cross-referencing them with other occult texts and historical records. As they worked, another child vanished. 9-year-old Ben Thompson disappeared from his bedroom in the middle of the night, leaving behind an old, rusted toy train. The city of Ravenswood was gripped by fear and despair. Parents refused to let their children out of their sight, and the streets that were once filled with laughter and play now echoed with silence. Grayson and Dr. Harper made a breakthrough when they discovered a symbol Adler had drawn repeatedly in his journal. The symbol, a complex geometric pattern, seemed to be the key to the ritual. Dr. Harper identified it as a seal used in ancient rituals to bind and release spirits. They needed to recreate this seal, using the toys as focal points, to sever the connection and free the children's souls. The location for the ritual was critical. Adler had performed his original ritual in his workshop, so it seemed fitting to conduct the reversal there. Grayson and Dr. Harper gathered the toys left at each disappearance site, placing them carefully in a circle according to Adler's instructions. The atmosphere in the workshop was thick with anticipation and unease. As night fell, they began the ritual. Dr. Harper chanted the incantations, her voice steady despite the growing tension. Grayson meticulously drew the seal on the floor with chalk, ensuring every line and angle was perfect. The toys seemed to pulse with an eerie energy, their presence almost palpable. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped, and a chilling wind swept through the workshop. Shadows danced on the walls, and a low, haunting whisper filled the air. Grayson felt a shiver run down his spine as he continued to trace the seal, his focus unwavering. Dr. Harper's chanting grew louder, resonating with an otherworldly power. As they completed the final incantation, a blinding light erupted from the seal, engulfing the room. Grayson shielded his eyes, feeling a surge of energy pass through him. The light intensified, then slowly began to fade, leaving the workshop in an eerie stillness. The toys lay motionless in the circle, their sinister presence gone. Grayson and Dr. Harper held their breath, waiting for a sign that the ritual had worked. The silence was deafening. Then, faintly at first, they heard the sound of children crying. The voices grew louder, more distinct, until Grayson recognized them as the missing children. Relief washed over him as he realized the ritual had been successful. The children were free. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. The missing children reappeared, dazed and disoriented but otherwise unharmed. Their return brought immense joy to their families and the entire community of Ravenswood. The old toys, now devoid of their dark energy, were collected and destroyed, ensuring they could never harm anyone again. Detective Grayson and Dr. Harper became local heroes, their names etched into the town's history. Ravenswood slowly began to heal, the scars of the disappearances fading with time. The parks and streets filled with the sounds of children playing once more, a testament to the resilience and unity of the community. Yet, despite the happy ending, Grayson couldn't shake the feeling that some mysteries remained unsolved. He often thought about Heinrich Adler and the tragedy that had driven him to such desperate measures. In the quiet moments, Grayson wondered if Adler's spirit had found peace, or if it still lingered in the shadows, a silent guardian watching over the town he once loved. The return of the missing children brought a wave of relief and celebration to Ravenswood, yet a sense of unease lingered. Detective Grayson couldn't help but feel that the darkness hadn't fully lifted. His instincts told him there was more to Adler's curse than they had uncovered. With Dr. Harper's help, he continued to delve into the mystery, seeking answers that would ensure the safety of the town. One night, As Grayson sat in his study, surrounded by the documents and artifacts from Adler's life, a chill ran down his spine. A cold breeze whispered through the room, causing the pages of Adler's journal to flutter. Grayson noticed a page he had overlooked before. It was near the end, almost hidden among the brittle leaves. The entry was dated just a day before Adler's death. In the entry, Adler wrote about a final, desperate attempt to save his son. He had discovered a deeper layer to the ritual, one that involved a direct confrontation with the spirits bound to the toys. Adler believed that by facing the spirits and showing them the love and loss that drove his actions, he could release them and find peace. But the process was dangerous, requiring a pure heart and a willingness to sacrifice. Grayson knew he couldn't ignore this revelation. He reached out to Dr. Harper once more, sharing his discovery. Together, they devised a plan to perform the final part of the ritual, hoping to end the curse once and for all. The town's safety depended on it, and they couldn't leave any stone unturned. They decided to return to Adler's workshop, the place where it had all begun. As they prepared for the ritual, Grayson felt a sense of foreboding. This final step required not just precision but emotional strength. They needed to confront the spirits with empathy and compassion, showing them that their suffering was understood. The workshop was even more dilapidated than before, its shadows deeper and more menacing. Grayson and Dr. Harper set up their ritual circle, placing the remnants of the cursed toys at its center. The air grew heavy as they began to chant, the symbols and incantations flowing from their lips with a mix of hope and fear. As the ritual progressed, the temperature plummeted and the room filled with an oppressive presence. Grayson could feel the spirits stirring, their anger and pain palpable. He steeled himself, focusing on the memory of the children they had saved, drawing strength from their innocence and resilience. Suddenly, a spectral figure emerged from the shadows. It was Johann, Adler's lost son, his form translucent and filled with sorrow. Behind him, other ghostly figures appeared, the spirits of the children bound to the toys. Their eyes were hollow, their expressions a mixture of longing and despair. Grayson stepped forward, his voice steady. He spoke to the spirits, recounting Adler's story, his love for his son, and the tragic mistake that had led to their suffering. He told them about the children of Ravenswood, the joy they brought to their families, and the community that had come together to save them. As he spoke, he felt a connection forming, a bridge between the living and the dead. Dr. Harper joined in, her voice soothing and compassionate. She explained the final step of the ritual, urging the spirits to let go of their pain and find peace. She assured them that they were not forgotten, that their stories would live on through the town's history and the memories of those who had fought to save them. The spirits wavered, their forms flickering. Johann stepped forward, his eyes meeting Grayson's. In that moment, Grayson felt a surge of emotion, a mix of Adler's grief and his own determination to protect the town. He reached out, his hand passing through Johann's spectral form, but leaving behind a warmth that spread through the room. The ghostly figures began to fade, their expressions softening. One by one, they disappeared, their presence lingering for a moment before dissolving into the air. The oppressive weight lifted, replaced by a serene stillness. The ritual had worked. Grayson and Dr. Harper stood in the quiet workshop, the relief washing over them. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, the curse finally broken. The spirits were at peace, their stories woven into the fabric of Ravenswood's history. In the days that followed, the town began to heal in earnest. The fear that had gripped Ravenswood gave way to a renewed sense of hope and community. Families celebrated the return of their children, and the parks and streets filled with laughter once more. The old toys, now mere relics of a dark past, were destroyed, ensuring they could never harm anyone again. Grayson and Dr. Harper continued their work, documenting their findings and sharing their story with the town. They hoped that by preserving the memory of Adler's tragedy and the courage of the townspeople, they could prevent such horrors from ever happening again. Ravenswood had faced its darkest fears and emerged stronger, a testament to the power of unity and compassion. As Ravenswood began to return to normal, a sense of calm settled over the town. The once haunting whispers of the past seemed to fade, replaced by the joyful sounds of children playing and families reuniting. Detective Grayson and Dr. Harper were lauded as heroes, their bravery and determination praised by the entire community. However, the two knew that their work was not yet complete. In the days following the final ritual, Grayson couldn't shake the feeling that something still lingered. He decided to revisit Adler's workshop one last time, driven by a need for closure. Dr. Harper accompanied him, sharing his belief that there might be more to uncover. The workshop stood as a silent sentinel of the past, its walls bearing witness to the tragedies and triumphs of Ravenswood. As Grayson and Dr. Harper entered, they were struck by the stillness, the air heavy with the memories of what had transpired. They moved through the room methodically, ensuring that no detail was overlooked. In a dusty corner of the workshop, hidden beneath a pile of old tools and broken toys, they discovered a small, ornate box. It was intricately carved with symbols similar to those used in Adler's rituals. Grayson carefully opened it, revealing a collection of letters and photographs, along with a delicate locket containing a faded picture of a young boy, Johann. The letters were from Adler, written in his final days. They were addressed to his son, filled with words of regret and love. Adler wrote about his despair at losing Johann, his descent into madness, and his desperate attempts to reverse the tragedy he had unwittingly caused. He expressed hope that one day, Johann's spirit would find peace and forgiveness. Grayson and Dr. Harper realized that these letters held the key to understanding Adler's true intentions. Despite his actions, Adler had been a father driven by love and grief, his desperate measures a reflection of his deep sorrow. The discovery of the letters added a new layer of complexity to the story, highlighting the human element behind the supernatural events. With this newfound understanding, Grayson and Dr. Harper decided to share Adler's story with the town. They organized a community gathering at the local town hall, where they presented the letters and photographs, offering a comprehensive account of the events that had transpired. They spoke of Adler's love for his son, the tragic mistake that led to the curse, and the ultimate redemption achieved through the ritual. The townspeople listened in rapt silence, their emotions a mixture of sorrow and empathy. By the end of the presentation, there was a collective sense of healing and closure. The community now understood the full scope of the events, and with that understanding came forgiveness and peace. In the months that followed, Ravenswood flourished. The town embraced its history, acknowledging the darkness but also celebrating the resilience and unity that had overcome it. A memorial was erected in the park where Emily Hart had first disappeared, dedicated to the children who had been lost and found, as well as to Heinrich Adler, whose love for his son had set the events in motion. Detective Grayson continued his work in Ravenswood, his reputation bolstered by the successful resolution of the disappearances. He remained a pillar of the community, always vigilant, always ready to protect the town he had come to love. Dr. Harper returned to her academic pursuits but remained a close friend and confidante, her insights invaluable to Grayson in the years to come. The town of Ravenswood never forgot the events that had transpired, but they no longer lived in fear. The shadows of the past had been confronted and vanquished, replaced by a future filled with hope and promise. The children of Ravenswood played freely once more, their laughter a testament to the enduring spirit of the community. And though Grayson occasionally felt the lingering presence of the past, he knew that the spirits of Johann and the other children had found peace. Their stories had been told, their suffering acknowledged, and their memories cherished. Ravenswood had been forever changed, but it had emerged stronger, a beacon of resilience and compassion in the face of darkness.